Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents 1 Second per Second by S.D. Unwin. Narrated by Tristan Morris. 1. I swerve a tumbleweed the size of a Mini Cooper. They just come at you, one after another, one with another. It's not possible to dodge them all, so some you just have to take head on. Let them roll over you and make them a problem for the guy behind. Growing up, I couldn't wait to get out of this place. And now, I'm back. Physics was my ticket out. In a way, I left town with the circus because many of my heroes, the men and women who had ignited my love of science, now seem quite clownish in hindsight. Even my greatest hero, Albert Einstein, had been wrong in so many important ways that have shriveled my confidence in any understanding of things. Time is the fourth dimension. Nothing travels faster than the speed of light. All the profound insights that put my dear Albert at the top of the physics heap now turn out to be BS. And though physics got me out of this place, it also brought me back. I show my pass at the site gate, drive across 5 miles of southeastern Washington state desert, then park in the TMA lot. That's the Time Management Agency. Clever name. They figured that if the agency's name was ever mentioned indiscreetly, then it'd be assumed its mission is work efficiency. You know, how to plan your day, or politely end a Zoom call. The TMA building stands center among half a dozen smaller structures. Not a lot of architectural detail was lavished on these buildings that look like trailers grown up without supervision, more metal than glass or brick, and usually shrouded in a shimmer of brutal desert heat. I brace myself. I had left at least 3 arguments on simmer last night, and will be required to pick them up where I had left off. I just had to decide in which order I'd take them on. Argument number 1. I say it's better to reverse protocols number 1 and number 2 because that'd accelerate Phase A outcomes. On reflection, I was wrong. I'll save that one until last, because my being wrong makes my opponent no less of an asshole. Argument number 2. This one relates to an arcane point of quantum field theory, and about which only I and my opponent care. Finally, argument number 3. I cannot remember what it was, but I was animated and rude. Someone will remind me. Casper Asmus. Is he really going to be my first conversation of the day? Casper has the mantle of most arrogant little shit on campus, and he's up against some pretty stiff competition. "Did you read my paper?" he asks as a good morning. "No, sorry. Not yet," I reply, looking toward the kitchen where coffee will be found. His incredulity is unconcealed. "That it?" I ask, noticing the stapled sheets in his hand. "Let me look now." That'll peeve him. Me taking just a cursory glance outside the snack room when I was supposed to dedicate a full evening to it. I read. "What is this?" He stares at me, then swivels to look. "What do you mean?" "This notation. What is it?" He sees the problem and smiles smugly. "That's my block mathematical notation," he says. "Is it? I see. You've developed your own notation." "Yes. It's better. Succinct." I don't look up. "So I don't only have to understand your idea, but have to learn your invented notation first?" No answer, so I look at him. He's satisfyingly discomfited. "Did you consider cuneiform?" He stares stupidly. "You know, instead of English, that'd really slow us up." I put the paper back into his hand and walk toward the coffee. I don't know why I have to be like this. He's a young guy, full of ideas, yet I get satisfaction in beating him down. Was I always this way? He's brilliant, and maybe his new notation will be universal in 10 years, but I just can't get past not liking him. I should be nurturing him. Am I the asshole? Isaac Newton was an asshole. Jealous, suspicious, conniving. Maybe it goes with the territory. like I'm in Newton's territory. But then Einstein was a nice guy, wasn't he? No, I can't be an asshole. No asshole worries about being an asshole. The hot black coffee hits the spot, and I navigate cubicles toward the control room. No one nurtures anyone here. Why is that? And it only seems to get worse. Is it to do with everyone being smart? Maybe it does go with the territory. Before I came to TMA, I'd worked in friendly, collegial environments where everyone was respected and had a voice. Everyone was valued and contributed through civil discourse and compromise. And in those places, I would have been hard-pressed to find a single first-rate mind. If true, it's a depressing correlation. I enter the control room and see Jen is in the big chair. Half a dozen others are scattered around consoles and facing a wall screen displaying a projection of the Earth's surface. Maybe 24 red lights pinpoint locations on the map with a caption below each. University of Maryland, College Park, Delphi Pharmaceuticals, Edinburgh, UK, University of Mumbai, India. Quiet night? I ask Jen. Not especially, she replies. Correlations? I ask. No, she says. That's always a relief. It means the incidents are probably not a concerted effort, and are no more than random events across the globe. A green light illuminates in South Korea, Yonsei University, 12 seconds per second. That's a moderate forward rate, but I've come to understand that time is fragile, and what seems like a small time acceleration can be catastrophic, with the potential for lives lost, futures vanished, and civilizations buried before they see the light of day. It's unfathomable to me that nature puts no safeguards in place to prevent this sort of thing, so it's left for us to deal with it. A handful of arrogant jackasses in a few tin buildings in the middle of nowhere. All eyes are on the map. Confirm Echo, Joe Alvarez asks without looking back. Affirmative to Echo, Jen says. Here I'm used to feeling nothing. You'd expect at least a tremor, a rumble or a crack of lightning, given the scale of what just happened. But no, nothing. The only evidence of something having happened is that the green light in Korea turns red. Completed, Alvarez says. Completed confirmed, someone calls. Another disaster averted. We get about a dozen of these a day. 0 on a good day, 20 on a bad one. But we deal with each of them. 1 second per second is how it should be. And we do our job, making sure that that's what happens. Always. Everywhere. For a team that barely knows what we're doing, we do pretty well. So that one's over for us. But in the other Washington, the paperwork is just gearing up. There will be investigations, government-to-government dialogues, voluminous findings, and action plans. Jen is staring at that new red light to make sure it stays red. It's never routine, and that's not a chair I want to sit in. I look back through the glass wall of the control room, and Casper Asmus has his nose up against it. Now there's someone who does want to sit in that chair. We lock eyes, and he blinks first. 2. The greatest scientific challenge of our age had never been to invent a machine that enables time travel. It was to invent one that prevents it. Some think that the universe was designed. If it was, I'm guessing that whoever did that job doesn't include it on their resume. It'd be too much of an embarrassment, and so they would have a 14-billion-year gap that would need to be explained at their next job interview. That the universe is indifferent and disinterested is a truth with which most of us are reconciled. But we had thought that at least the world made some sense, that what we see and experience is some rough approximation of the way the universe actually is. How could my heroes have had any way of knowing how untrue that is? Of knowing that nature's most basic building block, its most fundamental ingredient, time itself, is in reality a bit of an imbecile, and in dire need of adult supervision. What I do is manage time. 1 second per second is the perfect pace for time. It's dead center of the Goldilocks zone, just right and not open to improvement. It was good enough to evolve life on Earth, just fine to produce great ideas like democracy, human rights, and cheese, and even a universe of galaxies, stars, and worlds came into being at that comfortable pace. It all happened at 1 second per second. 50 years per second hurtling into the future, or negative millennia per second plummeting into the past, are the stuff of chaos. And yet the universe, it turns out, is just fine with it and its consequences. Time travel, once figured out, is embarrassingly easy. Nature puts no barriers to it in place, and even makes it hard to avoid. If there is any kind of cosmic plan, is one in which time is chaos, and people, civilizations, and realities its playthings. My day job is to confound that plan. 3. There may be tumbleweed, but there are also grapes. I drive by uncountable rows of neatly trained vines into a red mountain sunset. The Dog Star Winery is a modest garage-like box compared to the faux chateau structures further up the vine-covered slope. Its parking lot is crowded with cars and guests who have overflowed from the tasting room. The release party for the newest Dog Star Cabernet is an invitation-only affair, and I recognize some of the revelers that I circumnavigate or push through to get to the winery entrance. Inside, guests have formed huddles, and as always, the biggest huddle is centered on Bess. I grab a glass of red from the bar and look around for someone I might know. I'm not one for breaking into an ongoing conversation, so I wait and sip. Bess always told me you need 2 things to be a successful winemaker. Making okay wine is one of them, but the second one is more important. It's having a good backstory. Bess's business partner has the okay wine covered, but Bess is the one with the backstory. Astrophysicist turned winemaker, eyes lowered from the heavens to earth. Nonsense, of course, but how many other wineries can claim an astrophysicist? Bess sees me and breaks out from her huddle of admirers. I know, I'm sorry, I say quickly. I'm late. Fuck, Jode. I've got 80 people milling around, getting drunk and wondering if there really is a new release, she says, smiling. But not for me. You didn't have to, I begin. Then her face creases into a yet wider smile, as a passing admirer puts a hand on her arm. None of this matters to you, I know. It does matter, I say. She shakes her head, smile still intact. I don't have a job where I can just take off an apron and head home. I know. You have a very important job, Jode. Unlike me, is left unsaid, and the smile slips. This? Now? However, she was about to reply, and her big brown crazed eyes foreshadowed something savage. It is put on hold, as her business partner calls her over. I nod a thankful greeting at him. In fairness, the treatment I can look forward to is deserved, because Bess had reminded me not to be late at least 3 times over breakfast. I return to the bar for a second glass. Den, the partner, is Byronic, with heavy, overly tended eyebrows, which alone announce a supercilious arrogance. He and Bess are well coordinated, black hair hanging straight from a middle parting, his clip shorter than hers, loose white open-neck shirts, and infeasibly tight black jeans, like twins. Incestuous twins, I'm almost certain. He puts his arm around Bess and leads her out to the barrel cave. It's not really a cave, because garages, as a rule, are not attached to caves. At some point, and I don't know exactly when, Den became the type of person Bess admires. After a few minutes, they emerge from the cave, and Den helps Bess up onto the bar. "Welcome," she says softly, but it commands the attention of the room. "I'm excited." She laughs, and someone whoops. Winery staff circulate with trays of red wine, and I grab a glass. This is the launch of the 2018 vintage, which has been 3 years in the making. I do a mental calculation. Yesterday's Vancouver event could have taken someone back to that harvest in 1/3 of a second. That was a bad event by any standard, the kind that turns your flesh cold. Negative 315 million seconds per second. At that acceleration, it'd take 4 minutes to get back to the founding of the Roman Republic, and the further back some hapless wanderer travels, exponentially greater is the potential for disaster. At least, that's the theory. Bess knows nothing about my job, but at least she knows nothing. My story to her is only a half lie, yet still distant from the truth. She stopped asking, of course, but where there's dishonesty between a couple, it can be tough to limit. As far as Bess and everyone else who asks is concerned, I work on an academic project to detect exotic fundamental particles, and that's almost true. Just how exotic those particles are, and why I do it, those are the things within the wall of secrecy. The particles are called tachyons. It turns out that when nature sits back and looks on gormlessly as time acceleration occurs, then these tachyons are emitted, and at TMA, we're in the business of detecting them. Tachyons are the strangest little buggers, but thank God they exist, because without them, and without our pinpointing where they came from, we'd be in a world of incoherence and chaos. And when I say they're exotic, I understate it. While the speed of light is the upper limit for all other things, for tachyons it's the lower speed limit, and as slow as they can go. Einstein thought that nothing could travel faster than light, but these mad little things shoot through Einstein's grave at warp speed. I love the color. It's a deep ruby, isn't it? Bess has started the tasting of the new Dog Star release, and is holding her glass up to the fluorescent light. There's the usual black currant, but do you get the herbal notes? Lavender? Some licorice, too? There's excited affirmation of her analysis, verging on the sycophantic. Den nods approvingly. He's the one who makes this booze, but she's the one who sells it. I really don't get any herbs at all. We're surrounded by 20 acres of Dog Star vineyards, lovingly tended and surgically harvested. 30 miles north of here, buried below a shanty town of overgrown trailers, is a 700-acre tachyon detection array. It sits silently, stirring only to send an electrical signal that illuminates a green light on a map half a mile above when a tachyon source is detected, triangulated, pinpointed, and analyzed. Then, when the director, the one in the big chair, so decides, the tachyon beam is reflected, phase-shifted, amplified, and beamed back to whence it came, destructively interfering with the source emission. This seems to do the trick. We're not 100% sure why, but the temporal acceleration is arrested, and we're saved. Saved from what is something we're not entirely sure about. I'm comforted in my ignorance by the fact that throughout history, many inventions seemed to have worked long before anyone knew why. How long did it take after the invention of the transistor for a real understanding of semiconductors? I can't remember, because the Cabernet is kicking in. Of course, at stake with transistors was tinny music, and not the very fabric of space and time. I think I do taste the lavender now, but I reach for a second glass to be sure. Hearing my name yanks me out of my muddled thoughts. Bess is reaching for me from her elevated position, and her audience is looking back at me, happy to be involved. I walk through the parting throng to hold Bess's hand as she jumps down from the bar. This is why I'm here. The astrophysicist backstory is much more compelling with an actual practicing physicist in the family. My wonderful hubby, the physicist, Bess announces, and I grin uncomfortably as I receive a round of undeserved applause. How do you like the cab? She asks in a stage whisper. Lavender? Licorice? I say, holding the glass up to the light and swirling it. Love it. Den slaps me on the back, and everyone laughs. 4. My father looks back at me. Sometimes he's there, and sometimes he isn't. But today there's no mistaking the long jawline and wide handles of pre-combed hair trying to escape each temple. He picks the worst days to appear. I walk into the kitchen, and Bess looks up from her tablet. I pick up the kettle, weigh it, and plug it in. That bad? Bess asks. She knows my hangovers require tea. You happy? Was it a success? She nods without looking up. I lean on the counter and stare at the kettle. Den, happy with it? I ask. She looks up. I look back. Yes, thank you, she says. Very happy. I'm sure, I say, and leave to get dressed. I can pick up tea on my way to work. I liked Den at first. He was a savvy business partner for Bess. When she, like many new arrivals to southeastern Washington, got into the local wine culture and decided that teaching physics at Washington State University had never been her calling, Den was there for her. Many a Microsoft or Amazon executive decided that their wealth had become sufficiently obscene, and that they'd retire to become winemakers, buying 100-acre vineyards with sofa change. But for us, plowing our meager savings into a vineyard and winery was a very big deal. There's the old adage that to wind up with a small fortune in winemaking, you need to begin with a large one. Den gave us a comfort feel that our investment was perhaps unwise, but at least not psychotic. This is the low bar for the wine business, so I was grateful to him. I didn't even notice at first that he was targeting more than Bess's enological talents. The man who had looked back at me from the bathroom mirror was a Den. He might have lacked the business talents, and he knew nothing of wine, but there were some things he and Den had in common. My father had a long career in promiscuity, and it had shaped my life, my mother's and brother's too. My memories are of anger and misery, and it was cruel of nature to let this DNA hide in my younger self, only to surface and now confront me in the mirror. It may have turned out that physics is quite feckless, but genetics is actually malicious. I cross town, get onto the interstate, and take an exit that must mystify most travelers, as it seems to lead only to semi-arid wasteland. I merge onto the road that takes you to the site. I park and check my phone before throwing it onto the passenger seat, leaving it in the car, as security protocol requires. Late again. The shift director won't comment. They never do. But I sense that records are being kept. I enter, and no one approaches me. Not even Casper. That's a pity, since I decided to be nice to Casper today, having felt a bit guilty about yesterday. It's unusually quiet. I never did get my tea, so I make a beeline for the kitchen. Something seems wrong. I turn and notice there's no motion in the control room. In fact, no people in the control room. In fact, no people anywhere. I enter the control room. Confirmed. No one. Even the big chair is empty. In my years at TMA, I'd never seen the big chair empty before. Protocol requires it never be unoccupied, except in the instant of a shift change or a toilet break swap out. I'm panicked and jump into the chair. I have no qualifications or authority to be in this chair, but it being empty is worse. I now notice several green lights on the map. Germany, Australia, Venezuela, Japan. 2 in Japan. Worse, I see a cluster of green. That's an event correlation if I ever saw one. Not good. And what makes it worse than not good is that the cluster is in southeastern Washington state. It's right here. As occupant of the big chair, I need to order affirmative to echo, but there's no one to say it to. The tachyons are streaming in, but I can't do a thing about it. I can't echo them to neutralize the events. I don't know how. It's an art, and it's never been my job. I jump up and look into the console from where the echo is triggered, but the controls are soft and not even slightly intuitive. I'm nauseous. What's happening out there? What happened right here? The cold sweat of a hangover has turned to the icy sweat of panic. I'd give up a limb to see a red light right now, but it's all green. Just green. Another green light illuminates. I need to call someone, so I burst out of the control room and run toward my cubicle. Then, the earth shudders, and I fall. There's a roar that shakes and deafens me, and I clutch onto the ground as the control room glass shatters, cubicle walls collapse, and the ceiling lights swing violently. I'm going to be sliced, crushed, and buried under a mountain of rubble. I hear myself scream. I hadn't intended to scream, but my body knew it was called for. There was another roar, and whatever had been left standing now hit the ground all around me. I cover my eyes as debris rains on me, but it seems light and fragmented rather than heavy and deadly. I look up, and the ceiling is still where it should be. If that comes down, it's over. I need to get out of here, because where there are 2 explosions, there may be 3. I lope toward the main entrance, hurtling over debris. The main door is no longer standing, and I run straight out into the parking lot. The other smaller buildings are in various states of collapse. If I'd been in one of those. The concrete pad of the parking lot is a web of cracks and craters, some a foot across. In all directions, I see plumes of rising smoke like a Dickensian landscape of billowing chimneys. Those must be from the elevator shafts and ventilation ducts serving the labyrinth of corridors that navigate the tachyon detector array. I wait, but there's no third boom. I notice that my right arm is cut. There's a lot of blood, but it doesn't look deep. Now there's silence, but for the geyser of water erupting from one of the collapsed buildings. The detection array has blown up. Why had it taken so long for this to occur to me? An explosion, 2 explosions, half a mile down is what just happened. But there's nothing in the array that could cause an explosion. So someone did this. Blew it up. Something else that had not occurred to me until now is that the parking lot contained a full complement of cars, some of them tilted in craters. I try to focus on the implications, but vomiting comes first. 5. I approach the site gate at the legal speed limit. I need to play this cool, to get out and think. Should I have already called the other Washington? I can't remember the procedure, but I'm pretty sure that I haven't followed it. I need to think. Just think. I pass the guardhouse through the exit lane and wave without taking my eyes from the road. They must have felt what just happened, and they must see the plumes. But no one tries to stop me. Maybe they're frantically calling the Risley Fire Department. Good luck with that. A fleet of 4 fire trucks dealing with the aftermath of colossal explosions half a mile deep. That's not one of their drills. Once there are miles between me and the site fence, I take out my cell and call Bess. She may be hearing news of ground-shaking explosions from the site, and I need to let her know I'm okay. Must be party time. It's not her. It's a man's voice. Who's this? Party loft. Is it time for a party? Asks the voice without curiosity. Sorry, I say, and hang up. But that was speed dial. How did I get the party loft? This time, I key in the numbers. Must be time for a party. I hang up and decide to figure this one out later. Now I need to do my job. So what is that? I bring up the roster.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?